After internal investigations and the removal of 3 leaders at the medical center, Michigan senators now calling for a federal investigation into serious allegations of poor care and misconduct at the hospital that has a multi-million-dollar budget and serves thousands of veterans every year. Senator Debbie Stabenow talking about the call to investigate Detroit's John D. Dingell VA Medical Center after allegations of misconduct were made.
They were doing internal investigations, replaced the people involved. They've now then brought it to all of us, and we're going to make sure this is done right.
Despite those internal investigations, Stabenow and Senator Gary Peters now calling on the office of the VA's Inspector General to look into what they call serious allegations of misconduct by management, saying it had been brought to their attention by patients, family, and even staff that veterans had received substandard or improper care, and that the VA had, quote, failed to notify Congress of these allegations in a timely manner. The senators want an investigation into what happened, whether it was covered up, and who is responsible for oversight.
I mean, there's no question. I mean, this is named after John Dingell, and certainly, I mean, you know, he I'm sure is having a fit from looking down on this. And so, but I also know that our current leadership, the VA, Dennis McDonough, is somebody who is all over this.
Local 4 did reach out to the medical center in response. VA Press Secretary Terrence Hayes saying, quote, patient safety is our top priority. We take these allegations very seriously, and we have an ongoing investigation into the matter. We appreciate the advocacy of these senators and, as always, welcome oversight from the Office of the Inspector General. Now, it's unclear whether the Inspector General has launched this investigation just yet, but both senators have said they want regular updates from the OIG, updates that we plan on asking for as well. Grant Herms, Local 4.
So happy Tuesday, everyone. Tonight, let's take a trip back in time, all the way back to the summer of 2023. That's when the mysterious figure known as President Biden established the first ever Office of Climate Change and Health Equity, a new bureaucracy deep within the Department of Health and Human Services. Well, at least Health and Human Services belong together, but Climate Change and Health Equity might as well be the Office of Brains and Joy Behar. So why bring this up now? Well, the Office of Climate Change and Health Equity, or OUCHI, rhymes with Fauci, wants to scold you. And the scold in charge is America's Assistant Secretary for Health, Admiral Rachel Levine. Take a look.
Hello, I'm Admiral Rachel Levine. This Black History Month, I'm pleased to partner with OMH in advancing better health through better understanding for Black communities. Climate change is having a disproportionate effect on the physical and mental health of Black communities. Black Americans are more likely than white Americans to live in areas and housing that increase their susceptibility to climate-related health issues. And 65% of Black Americans report feeling anxious about climate change's impact.
Why is it when I hear I get hungry for Quaker Oats? Anyway, that was like a Saturday Night Live sketch, except I nearly laughed. It makes me wonder, how long do you have to be at sea for Admiral Levine to start looking good? Now, maybe it's true that an apple a day might keep the doctor away, but when located in a woman's neck, it raises a few flags. But now Levine is pushing a government program that stirs up racial discord, wasting money to fit a crisis that doesn't exist. And you're funding this. Seriously, Blacks are more affected by climate? Do rain clouds follow Black people around like in a Charlie Brown cartoon? If a Black guy, an Asian guy, and a Hispanic guy are outside in the rain, does only one of them get wet? There aren't a lot of tsunamis raging through Southside Chicago or Philly, though they could use one to wash away the needles and the bloodstains. But minorities in urban areas have bigger worries than the weather. It's not hail, unless you mean hail of gunfire. And those bullets aren't coming from climate deniers or white racists. But I'm sure if a tsunami did rage through Chicago, Jussie Smollett would say 2 white guys stole his galoshes. As for blacks feeling anxious about climate change, join the club. Dems always cite statistics about Americans being scared of their propaganda as if it's scientific proof of that propaganda. It's like how tense Joe Mackey gets every time I scream, "You're fired." But still, there you are. But if you spend 30 years convincing people the weather is going to kill them, some folks are going to believe it. It's the same with preventing trans surgery among kids. Do that and you kill kids, says the Admiral. Seriously, how am I supposed to take health advice from Levine, who claims that restricting gender surgery costs the lives of young people? Science says no. A new long-term study finds that gender dysphoria is not a significant cause of suicide in adolescents. Furthermore, long-term Swedish studies found that post-op transgender people have a considerably higher risk of suicidal behavior than the general population. In other words, the idea that kids will kill themselves if they're not allowed to transition is a lie created to keep us from raising concerns. No wonder some hospitals have become Jiffy Lubes for gender surgery. But that's what science is now, where junk science is pushed by the so-called experts on our dime, and we're not supposed to say a peep or we'll be canceled. Then again, we live in a country where the guy in charge rubs Gold Bond medicated powder on his gums and denture cream on his nuts because he can't remember which is which. But here's a clue. According to a Stanford study, over the past 20 years, the medical profession has gone from 60% Republican to 80% Democrat. No wonder our medical system has gone totally woke. Examples are everywhere. Earlier this month, UC San Francisco invited Dante King, a professor of medical education, whatever that is, to lecture students about how white people are psychopaths, when it's really just cat tiff.
Whites are psychopaths, and their behavior represents an underlying biologically transmittable proclivity with roots deep in their evolutionary history. I think whites are psychopathic. I think there are many lies, the level of lying that white people do that has started since colonialism. We're just used to it.
Imagine if a white guy was saying that about blacks. Then there was Johns Hopkins Chief Diversity Officer Sharita Golden sending out a mass email blasting her colleagues for being white, able-bodied, heterosexual, male, or English-speaking. You know, a doctor used to tell you to turn your head and cough. Now she just grabs your stones and squeezes till you say you're sorry. I might ask for that. But you gotta ask yourself, who's got the privilege these days? If all those privileged folks are the ones who have to sit there and get yelled at, isn't the person wagging her finger at you the one you're not supposed to talk back to or else you're racist? Isn't she the one with all the privilege? Last November, the American Psychiatric Association published a textbook titled Gender Affirming Psychiatric Care, which noted, quote, scientific neutrality is a fallacy. The textbook uses the word oppress 60 times, victim 63 times, intersectional 62 times, and queer 83 times. That's not a textbook, it's an Antifa rally. And now you got applications for our country's med schools demanding diversity statements and calls for schools to remove the MCAT admission test as a requirement. Why not remove the requirements for surgeons to wash their hands or remove the glove requirement for prostate exams? You don't have to be smart to sterilize kids. You just have to follow orders. This madness isn't just here. British health officials, this is crazy, now claim that breast milk produced by trans women, i.e. dudes, after taking a bunch of drugs and hormones to produce it, is as healthy for babies as milk from a genetic female. And that's if you don't choke on the chest hair. Anyway, it's enough to make anyone lactose intolerant. But what does any of this crap have to do with medicine? It doesn't. Our health is now the next target for identity-based ideology. When the point is, science is what it is, not what activists tell you it is. It's illogical and it puts everyone in danger. And if you end up with a woke doctor, the next medical professional you might see is the coroner.
U.S. government defunding veterans and giving money to the illegal immigrants. You can say what you want. We all have differing opinions about opening borders and letting millions of people in here that don't have documentation, that are saying, oh, they're going through a rough time in other countries, as far away as, the awful countries such as China and or Australia. They've caught people from all these other countries coming in, and say what you want about it. But the government is now taking money away from military veterans here in the United States and giving it to illegal immigrants. I thought about doing this story a little while ago. And because this came out in 2023 of last year in May. It said a hoax story about migrants replacing homeless veterans goes viral. And it was a video where a veteran said, oh, I got kicked out of this place and they're replacing me with migrants in the housing and everything like that. And I read through it and I said, it doesn't really seem like there's a story here. Because they say here, and again, they may be lying, most news agencies do. They say the claim homeless veterans in New York were evicted and replaced with illegal immigrants. And come to find out that it was a veteran-based support group, and they were trying to raise funding for veterans, and it seems this story may be a little bit fabricated. But come to find out, if you read through here, and this is their rating, there's no evidence homeless veterans were evicted and replaced by migrants in New York. It's very specific. They say just in New York. Government officials and representatives of the hotels in question said that no veterans were in any of the hotels, nor were any guests displaced. Now, looking back at this story today, there's an interesting twist on it. They didn't replace, they say no veterans were in any of the hotels. The veterans weren't displaced, they say, because there were no veterans in the hotels. But there are migrants in the hotels, which means that instead of giving rooms to veterans and then kicking them out for migrants, they never gave the veterans the rooms in the first place. They just gave them to immigration and illegal immigrants. And so the veterans never had a room to begin with. From the post-millennial, Biden administration diverts veteran affair resources to illegal immigrants. Senator Tuberville introduced legislation to limit the resources to only be used for veterans. So they're taking VA or Veterans Affairs resources, doctors, medical services, getting checkups, getting all the things that the veterans are supposed to get. And it's getting very hard for veterans to get any of that done because they're using those same services for the immigrants coming in. And you can say what you want. Again, many people say, hey, we should take care of these people. We should open our doors and let them in. Okay, but you're doing it at the expense of the citizens that went to war and fought the battles for this country at the command of the president, the commander in chief at the time, no matter when that is. These are the men that gave up their lives in some cases, gave up their health, gave up everything to protect this country, and they're being dumped out on their heads for people that are coming here illegally. Say what you want about the immigration problem, but I kind of think you need to take care of your own first before you start taking care of other people. This is why I say that for men today, smart men don't join the military, smart men don't get in government, smart men don't do anything for these people, because they will dump you on your head the first second something comes along that will better benefit whatever they're trying to accomplish. They say it's been revealed that the Biden administration's been diverting resources from the Veterans Affairs organization to help illegal immigrants around the country. Senator Tommy Tuberville, a Republican from Alabama, spoke about the matter with Fox Digital in an interview reported on Tuesday morning. The Alabama senator recently introduced a bill titled the No VA Resources for Illegal Aliens Act in order to prevent it from happening again. Tuberville told the outlet they've opened up care from the doctors in these VA community care systems. The lines now in the VAs are getting longer. Our funds that are supposed to go to the veterans are going to these illegal immigrants that are coming across. The VA told the news network earlier in December that it has had an interagency agreement with ICE's Health Services Corps since 2002 to assist with reimbursements using the VA's Financial Service Center processing system when private providers take on medical care for illegal immigrants while they're at ICE detention centers. Under the agreement, ICE will pay the processing fees and will reimburse private providers. However, the resources used by the VA's Financial Service Center has likely gotten overloaded with the mass amounts of illegal immigration that's been ongoing over the southern border. VA representatives told the outlet there's a history of backlog of medical claims, which has resulted in veterans getting bills they shouldn't be getting and having dissatisfied community care providers who are not getting paid in a timely manner. The senator was disappointed that the VA has not been able to care for the 19 million veterans across the country, while the resources he mentioned have been diverted to help illegal immigrants that have been allowed into the U.S. amidst the ongoing border crisis. He says, I think we've got a great opportunity to get at this, maybe not to a vote, but at least people where we discuss it on the floor and where the American people start to understand it. You know, one of the things that I think that is pretty clutch here is that whether you believe the southern border should be open or whether you think it should be sealed tight and no one brought across, or you think it should be a slow and steady influx of people that want to come over here. There's one thing, though, that is true across all cases, is that right now, Americans in and of itself are really struggling. I mean, you see it in the news every day. You see these TikTok videos that I'm posting where these women that have degrees and they've done all this schooling and they're $200,000 in debt, they can't even get a job at fast food places. Right now, there's not enough work to go around for everybody. And so you have unemployment going up. And when they release the numbers, they've had to correct them because they've over-exaggerated the job numbers. And there's not a lot of jobs available because businesses are cutting full-time employees to become part-time employees, and those part-time employees have to get 2 jobs now. So the job numbers may look good, but there's a whole lot of people that are coming out of retirement because they can't afford to live just based on their retirement anymore. And there's a lot of people that had 1 job that now have to pick up 2 jobs to make the same amount of money. So when this is happening, you're seeing a lot of people very frustrated that their taxes and their money are going overseas, or they're going to people that are just showing up at the doorstep. I saw a video of a guy that was from the Bronx, New York, and he's walking like halfway across the country, and he's going to sneak into Texas and then throw away all his paperwork that he has on him. I'm sure he has his real paperwork back in his apartment or at a friend's house or something. I don't know his full deal. He said he's going to go across, like sneak across the border and then come back as an immigrant. He said, because at least this way I'll get free food, I'll get a place to stay, I'll get a free cell phone, I'll get a couple $1,000s to spend on a debit card for food, and I'll get a free trip across the country to probably wherever I want to go. He said, I think I'll go to California. You know, we've got a real problem with this stuff. But no matter how you feel about that, I think we all can agree that the vast majority of veterans that are injured, that are hurt, that have the mental struggles from dealing with conflict and going to war and all that stuff, those guys paid their dues. Those guys sacrificed themselves. Those guys put themselves out there. And as a country, I mean, they did it for the country. And as a country, we're turning around and pretty much spitting on them and telling them, you know what, you don't matter to us, that your health doesn't matter. And when it comes to this claim where they say, oh, well, no one's been kicked out of these apartments or these hotels or anything like this, nobody's been kicked. There's no VA guys that are being kicked out. Yes, we are housing illegal immigrants, but there's no veterans that have been kicked out. No one's been evicted. And here's the key. No veterans were in any of the hotels. That means that the veterans that are homeless, that are struggling, that have issues, they're not being helped by the government in the same way that the immigrants are. The immigrants are giving housing. The military, former military members aren't. The people the men a vast majority is men. I don't know what the percentage is, but it's probably, going back to guys that served back in Desert Shield and Desert Storm and things over in Iraq and Afghanistan, that was probably 95% men. Those are guys that are struggling, and they're the ones that are not getting the help. And now they're diverting even more money away from them, because most of those, and this is just a guess, but there's almost always politics involved. Most of those guys that serve their country and that were proud to do so, they love America. They love their families. They love their country. They're doing the right thing. Well, they're probably conservative, or they're more, based around Christianity or family. Well, this administration hates that. And so, but the new people coming in are likely going to be voting for good old Uncle Joe that opened up the borders. And so they're going to take money away from one group and give it to another. We've got such a crazy time coming up in politics and everything else that's going on. And I don't know how I'm going to do stories every day without having to touch on the third rail of politics. Because it's in dating, it's in movies, it's in entertainment, it's in drinking a beer, it's Coca-Cola and be less white. It's in your soda, it's in your food, it's everywhere now. You can't get away from it. And I sit here day after day starting digging into stories that I want to do a video on, and boom, politics starts touching every single one of them. And at a certain point, I either run out of stories to talk about, or you got to dip the toe. You got to dip the toe into the realization that it's not even left versus right. It's not this political party against that political party. Really, it's boiling down to you either believe in the government and do as we say, and we're going to tell you what's good for you, and you listen to us and you follow along, and if you don't, we're going to come after you. Or it's in the belief of freedom and allowing people to have some freedom and make the decisions that are best for them based on what they're doing, and to take care of the citizens already here before taking care of new ones that are coming in that we can't afford. I think a lot of this problem is going to go away at some point, because either the government keeps printing money and giving it away, and inflation skyrockets and everybody is angry, and there's a throwback against our own government, or the government runs out of money. They run out of money, and then the people that are here, that came over here, that are on the free ride, and then they're homeless, and then they're going back home, because there's certainly not going to be enough work for them here. You can only have so many people that come here and don't speak the language and don't kind of integrate into society. There's only so many jobs for people like that. What do? I don't know. But I can tell you now that not taking care of our vets, not taking care of the guys that did the right thing for our country, and then turning around and giving freebies to people that come here illegally from a bunch of other countries, that's not going to work out well. And it shows you that if you don't fall on the right side of politics, at least in this year, you're going to suffer, while the people that fall on the right side of the politics, they'll get all the cash and prizes. And it's very frustrating to see. I'll try to keep finding stuff that is not, third rail and all talking about politics and the rest of it. But understand, I don't like any party. I don't like the government, period. I understand they have a job to do, but I'm not left or right. I hate all of it, but it's a necessary evil. That's really where I stand. But unfortunately, it is boiling down to more of the group that is fine with you having things and being free and doing what is right. And then there's the other group of comply or will crush you. And those camps are appearing very quickly. And I think you're really going to notice that much more in 2024. Guys, if you like my work, please jump over to betterbachelor.locals.com. We got free speech. We've got a great forum of community members that share lots of great information. I do 10 to 12 hours of live streams every month for supporters. And it's $5 a month. $5, and that lets me be independent and keep doing interesting stories that YouTube probably doesn't like. All right, guys, I'll leave it there. We'll see you in the next one.